Hi, Charlie Duncan Photography, cduncanphoto.com, and I just wanted to do a short video, show you how I would edit this photo here. This is Lightroom 5, and right now we will be in the develop module, and the only sliders the only part of the develop module dealing with is this section over here, which is the basic settings to probably a little bit of the HSL, some detail, and that's pretty much the main parts that I work with. I don't usually do too much with tone curve on my images. Split toning, sometimes I'll do split toning, but not very often. So mainly, and lens corrections. Lens corrections are usually just one click. Enable them, remove chromatic aberration, and that's pretty much it. I don't even do those. I just take it how it is and work from there. So in Lightroom 5 you have all these sliders: temp, tint, exposure, contrast, highlights, shadows, whites, blacks, clarity, vibrance, and saturation. These are your basic controls on editing the images. Exposure brightens and darkens the image. You can double click. Once you change the setting, you can actually double click on this slider thing to move it back to the 0 mark. Contrast adjusts contrast, lighter or darker. Highlights only affect the highlights of the image. Bring them brighter or darker. Shadows, adjust the shadows of the image, lighter or darker. Whites, adjust the white part of the image, not the white balance. White balance is done up here. And blacks, adjust the intensity of the blacks of the image. Clarity can make your image soft or not so soft. Vibrance adjusts subtly the color, or the vibrance of the image. It adjusts the intensity of the colors of the image. Saturation adjusts how much of the color goes into the image. Okay, let's get started. So with this image, let me just click reset here. With this image, the thing that I see the most is that the mountains are too dark. So they're in the shadows, so I want to bring the shadows up. So I will bump my shadows up. Probably, let's just bump them up all the way. If it bumps them up too much and you start seeing noise in your image, then you can back down your shadows a little more. But this looks pretty good here. So then I kind of want to bring the clouds down so it makes the mountains pop. What we want to do here is make the mountains the main part of the image. So I will bring down the highlights just a little bit. And see, the problem with that is it's also bringing down the snow. So we want that snow to still pop on the mountain. So we'll bring the highlights up here, and what we'll do to take care of the sky is a gradient filter. A gradient filter right here, it will only affect a certain gradient of the image. So right now we only want to affect the sky, but we want to leave this alone. So the gradient filter, if you bring it down like this, will only affect this top part of the image, and then it will slowly fade its effects away until it's completely gone right here. And the effects are adjusted over here with this highlighted box. So we want to bring the cloud darkness down. So we'll just bring the exposure and the highlights of the clouds down a little. And there's still quite a bit of brightness here, so what we could do is we could bring it down like this, but then that really darkens the tips of the mountains. So what we could do is, if you move your mouse over here, it turns into a little arrow, and you can kind of angle it a little bit and bring it up and just kind of adjust it so it's only affecting where you want it to affect on the image. And I think that looks about right. Once you're done, you click the little done button that was right here. Now, another thing I like doing is I like my photos to look really crisp. So I use the clarity slider quite a bit, and sometimes I'll just ramp it all the way up. But on this, it kind of sucked the color out of a lot of things when I brought it up. So I will back this off a little bit to right about there. That's pretty good. Now that still sucks some of the color out, but we can bring that color back with this vibrant slider, and you just bump it up a little bit just so those greens are popping back out in those trees, and brings this color here in the mountains, adds a little bit of a tint to the sky, and it's looking pretty good here. But what the vibrant slider did was it kind of made these hills and these dirt areas a little orange. So another thing I like to do is, if you go down here to the HSL, which is hue, saturation, luminance, you can selectively adjust just one color at a time. So those oranges are a little powerful, so I will take this orange slider and I will bring it down a little bit until they're not as bad. And you can kind of see a little bit of yellows here too around the tips of the trees. So you can actually just take that yellow slider, bring that down as well. Let's see how that affected the whole image though. Let's see, it was 70 something. Kind of sucks a lot of the color out of the image, but we want those green trees to pop in here. So what we do is we take the green slider and we pop it up. Now, it took a lot of yellow out of these lines here, so I'm gonna back that off a little bit. Give myself some yellows back. Maybe not take 100% of the oranges out either. Still want some orange in there. Right about there looks good to me. Okay, now another thing I see is this area down here is a little distracting for me because it's kind of brighter than the rest of the areas around it. So we'll go up here to the adjustment brush and we'll click on the adjustment brush. Now what the adjustment brush does is it lets you paint any of these sort of sliders in one area. Now you can actually just adjust a single one here by clicking on these. Like you can click burn to darken the part, and see how that adjusted the exposure level to -30. That will just darken this area up a little bit. And I see a little bit of it here too, and it needs a little bit of darkening. Another thing you can do with darkening, well, another thing is that if you hover over the selection mark for where your first paint stroke was, it'll highlight the areas that are affected by the paintbrush, and it lets you see where you've actually painted. Now one thing to do to let this mountain pop up is when you look at this image first right now, your eye is kind of drawn to this area first because it's a little brighter than the mountain. So what we can do is we can get a new brush by clicking new up here, and we can take the exposure down by let's say half, like 0.5 or somewhere around there. You can actually click on these numbers and type in the number you want instead of having to go back and forth with the slider. So now we're going to paint a half of an exposure drop on every part of the image that we don't want to call attention to. And this will darken these mountains here, and it will make this mountain, make the mountain pop quite a bit. And if you want it even darker, you can adjust after the fact as well on the sliders, and sometimes that helps you while you're painting to see where you need to fill in a little more. Actually, if you make a mistake, like I wanted part of the end of this road to be still a little bit brighter, you click on erase here and you just erase away what you've masked. And then you can adjust the overall afterwards. I believe this needs to be a little darker here too. That looks good to me. Now, I post a lot of my images online, so and once you're done with the adjustment brush, you click done, and that gets rid of the little markers. So I post a lot of my images online, so I like to just really crank up the sharpening on my images, and sometimes I'll just crank it up all the way just to make everything look a little crisp. It's just part of my style. You may do things a little different. And when you look at this loop here, this is like a one-to-one preview of the image. And you can see that there's a little bit of noise in there because I adjusted the sharpening up. You can use this noise mat right here, this slider, and take away some of the noise. But what I find is for my images, it takes away a lot of the sharpness, so I usually don't even use that. And if somebody's going to print it huge, I'll back off the sharpening for them so they don't have to deal with that. And that's pretty much it for this video. If you like this video and want to see more like it, click the subscribe button, and also click the like button if you like this video as well. Thank you very much. I'm Charlie Duncan, Charlie Duncan Photography, cduncanphoto.com, and get out there to take some pictures. Thanks.